Hello there everyone, this is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth TV. The love of money is the root of all evil. This statement was written thousands of years ago, and yet it still rings true today. The powers that be in the 21st century have enslaved the people of the world under a perpetual debt-based system, where new money is created out of thin air through the practice known as fractional reserve lending. In order to have a solid understanding of how this current debt-based system operates, we must first look back at history to see where this all began. The first man to popularize the idea of lending out money that doesn't exist was Meyer Amschel Bauer. Meyer Amschel was born in Frankfurt, Germany in 1743. He was the son of Moses Amschel Bauer, a money lender and goldsmith who decided to open up a new shop known as a counting house. Over the door leading into this shop, he placed a large red shield. At a very early age, Meyer Amschel Bauer showed that he possessed immense intellectual ability, and his father taught him everything he could about the money lending business. A few years after his father's death, Meyer Amschel Bauer went to work as a clerk in a bank owned by the Oppenheimers in Hanover. His superior ability was quickly recognized, and he quickly advanced within the firm. Shortly after his days at the bank in Hanover, he returned to Frankfurt, where he was able to purchase the business that his father had established in 1750. At the beginning of his empire, he decided to change his name. The sign on the front of his goldsmith's office, or bank, was a large red shield which was placed there by his father. And since this is where his legacy began, he decided to change his name to Rothschild, which is German for red shield. The beginning of the House of Rothschild dynasty took place in the 1760s when Meyer Amschel Rothschild renewed his acquaintance with General von Eastorf. Rothschild worked for General Eastorf while employed at the Oppenheimer Bank. When Rothschild discovered that the general, who was now attached to the court of Prince William of Hanu, was interested in rare coins, he took full advantage of the situation. By offering valuable coins at a discount price, he soon integrated himself with the general and other influential members of the court. One day, His Highness Prince William bought a handful of his rarest metals and coins. This was the first transaction between a Rothschild and a head of state. Meyer Amschel Rothschild became an agent for the prince, and when William was forced to flee Denmark, he left 600,000 pounds, then valued at around $3 million, with Rothschild for safekeeping. History shows that Rothschild embezzled the money from Prince William, and he used it to vastly expand his empire and to become the first international banker. In 1770, Rothschild married and had a large family consisting of 5 sons and 5 daughters. His sons were Amschel, Solomon, Nathan, Karl, and Jacob. Rothschild had trained all of his sons in the art of money lending, just like his father did with him. He had sent his son Nathan to England to take care of the family business in that country. With their huge accumulation of wealth, the family established branches of the House of Rothschild in Berlin, Vienna, Paris, and Naples. When Meyer Amschel Rothschild died on September 19, 1812, he left a will in which he laid down specific laws by which the house that bore his name would operate. All key positions in the House of Rothschild were to be held by members of the family only, and not by hired hands. Only male members of the family were allowed to participate in the business. The eldest son of the eldest son was to be the head of the family, unless the majority of the rest of the family agreed otherwise. It was for this exceptional reason that Nathan, who was particularly brilliant, was appointed head of the House of Rothschild in 1812. The family was to intermarry with their first and second cousins in order to preserve the vast fortune. Amschel forbid his heirs most explicitly in any circumstance whatever to have any public inventory made by the courts or otherwise of my estate. Also, I forbid any legal action and any publication of the value of the inheritance. Anyone who disregards these provisions and takes any kind of action which conflicts with them will immediately be regarded as having disputed the will and shall therefore suffer the consequences of doing so. Needless to say, the House of Rothschild had established itself as an incredibly wealthy, powerful, and secretive family. They were ruthless in all business ventures, and they still are to this day driven by an all-consuming lust for wealth and power. Biographer Frederick Morton tells us in his book, The Rothschilds, that Mayer Amschel Rothschild and his 5 sons were wizards of finance and fiendish calculators who were motivated by a demonic drive to succeed in their secret undertakings. As it sits today, the Rothschilds are the majority shareholders of the Bank of England and the American Federal Reserve, as well as many other central banks all over the world. However, here in Canada, it's a little different in the sense that our bank was nationalized and is therefore owned by the Canadian people. The Bank of Canada began its operations on March 11, 1935, after the passage of the Bank of Canada Act. The bank was originally founded as a private corporation. However, in 1938, Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie King nationalized the bank and therefore put it in the hands of the Canadian people.
To give up this right to lend to ourselves is absurd, because what has happened? We've gone from an $18 billion deficit to up to a $588 billion deficit, of which about 95% of that is compound interest. And money, we're paying interest to who? Well, there's no person out there who has a Canadian flag, who lives in Canada, who we pay $60 billion in interest, both federally, provincially, and at the municipal levels too. We're paying someone else interest on the money that we can print and produce ourselves and lend it to ourselves to fund our infrastructure, to fund our social programs, to fund our education for our university students who are also being put in a debt trap. But as you give up control of your currency, and William Lyon Mackenzie King said it most poignantly when he said this. He said, you know, the issuance of the credit and currency is the state's most precious resource. And once you give up that control, it matters not who makes the laws of the land, because usury, once in control, will wreak havoc on any nation.
Our bank charter states that we can print up to 50% of our own money at no interest. However, in the 1970s, the Bank of Canada began borrowing from private banks at interest, and this is the #1 reason for the exponentially growing debt bubble, which can never be paid off. The Canadian government only prints 5% of our money. The other 95% is created by private banks to whom we owe interest. So today we are going to be offering $5 of cold, hard debt to anyone who can answer our 2-part question. What is money, and how is new money created?
I'm here to offer people $5 worth of debt if they can tell me the answer to this question. Where does money come from, and how is new money created?
Oh God.
From trees.
In a factory by machines. Come from trees.
Well, the government is making the money, and they print it, and there's a bank, which I don't know the name of it, they print it there.
The government prints up the money, and it's taken, that money is taken, printed in Ottawa.
Controls it. Businessmen are around King Street, all these guys, Front Street, all these guys, they're the ones that dictate what goes on.
I'll give you this $5 worth of debt, so I'm in debt to $5.
And I'm debt-free, $5 right now.
Money comes from the Canadian Mint, #1, and it's created by the government based on factors like inflation.
In a big factory place.
The banks can create money when money comes in as a deposit. They can create and loan out 10 times that amount. So that's one way that money's created.
And where does new money come from?
The government wills it into existence, don't they?
Pretty much. That's, I think, the correct answer. So
sweet.
I'll give you $5 worth of debt for that. Where does money come from, and how is new money created?
Good question. Other than the mint, I don't really know.
What would you say if I told you 95% of our money is printed by private chartered banks, and then we pay interest on the money that private banks print for us?
I'd be surprised.
As far as I know, the Bank of Canada, it's an impotent institution today. Instead of the government borrowing from the Bank of Canada, we're borrowing from private banks and paying them interest. Why? It's so completely criminal.
The Canadian money? No idea, sorry.
Money comes from thin air, from the people who control the banks.
Here's $5 worth of debt.
All right.
So,
The only way to get our system back on track is to stop borrowing public money from private banks and to begin borrowing it from the Bank of Canada, as was intended by William Lyon Mackenzie King. We must return the issuance of our currency back into the hands of the Canadian people.